Hello everyone, this is Philosophy 67, right? And this is week 9. We are doing Heidegger, the question concerning technology from page 3 to page 35. And this is a difficult text. I will point out some important moments. Again, I don't want to be too long, but some of the most important moments. And you see, when you open your document, I put a note, right? I mean, the essay was written in 1955, and on page 4 you already see at the top of the page on page 4, technology is not equivalent to the essence of a technology. Okay, so think about that. There is already, and this is the most important perhaps moment in the essay, the distinction between technology and the essence of technology. He goes back to that a few times. For example, you know, then I'll go back to the beginning, but on page 29, you see already that he speaks about the essence, and on page again 35, right? He says, and I highlighted things for you, page 35, which is the last page in the essay. He says, because I read these few lines, because the essence of technology is nothing technological. Okay, so think about that. Technology, so the technological device. And today this is very important. I mean, this was written again in 1955, but also with the emergence now of digital technology. It was different back then. Maybe some of the insights that we find in Heidegger are even more important. Then we'll go on to other to discussing more, right, the question of technology later in the next weeks. But this is, by the way, week 9, so it is the beginning also of part 3 of the semester, right? The last part of the semester, the last 4 weeks, which is called in the syllabus Technology, Machinic Assemblage, and that DEBT. We'll speak about these three important points, other things as well. Remember that we started with the question of sovereignty, right? Sovereign power, dialectical subversions, right? We did in part 2, was called capture and lines of light, the prison and the camp, and now the question of technology, the prison and the camp, technology. Another important concept that you find, in addition to the distinction between technology and the essence of technology, to which I'll go back. Also, the concept of, and I think I asked you to write about that, the concept of enframing, right, which you find, for example, on page 19, 20, and 21, 23, 24, page 30. Enframing is very important, right? So it goes back, in a sense, to the idea of a capture that we already saw. And you had a German word as well, but in any case, I'll go back to that in a moment. And then also the danger. Okay, so I would say, because again, the text is difficult, I highlighted important moments for you. Read the whole thing, especially the highlighted sections, passages, right? But keep in mind, perhaps, these most important key concepts. Okay, on the one hand, again, the first one would be technology and the essence of technology. They are not the same, right? And then the question of enframing, and the question of the danger. And the danger is really not technology as such, but the essence of technology. But then you will see what he says about the danger. I mean, by quoting, as he often does, Heidegger, Hölderlin. He quotes Hölderlin, a poet, and actually this the quote is on page 34, but he has this quote by Hölderlin, right, in other works as well. Okay, but I read this one. Okay, where danger is, where the danger is, grows the saving power also. Okay, there is a danger, but there is also what saves us from the danger, right? I mean, so think about that. So these three, again, moments, keep in mind. Then there are other important concepts that I want you to consider, to think, such as poiesis. You will find this word repeated often, for example, already on page 10, 11, poiesis, right? Poiesis, which is right, given there is bringing forth, poiesis. But think about this word. I mean, this is the Greek word from which also poetry comes, poetic, poetry. Poiesis is making. It is the act of making and of bringing forth something that wasn't there before. So production, okay, in that sense, poiesis. And then you also had the word physis, which is very important. It's also there on page 10, but then repeated again. Physis, 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 from which you can already gather that, right? The word physics, right? Physical, physics comes, that's again a Greek word that, in the Greek language, usually we translate this physis with nature. But Heidegger takes issue with that. He says, look, I mean, this Latin translation, right, and then the other languages too, of a physis with the Greek physis with nature is misleading, because physis is not, I mean, whatever we understand by nature, but physis is actually that which comes, that which emerges by itself, the self arising, right? Think about, I don't know, growth in nature, right? Whatever. I mean, but the potency inside things, whereby things happen, right? I mean, a tsunami, an earthquake, but also flowers blossoming, right, in the spring, and so on. So this self-arising, that which arises by itself, that is what physis is. And ultimately, then Heidegger makes also I mean, he sees this intimate relationship between physis and poiesis as well, right? Because this bringing forth, which is poiesis, this production, this making, is also a part of that self-arising, which is physis as well. And technology is part of that. Okay, so that's the idea. The essence of technology is linked to that. I mean, I think about also what technology is, not only today, computer technology, digital technology, or, in the past, the development of technology, right, and so on. But technology, techne, is another important concept that he uses. Techne is also a Greek concept, craft and art. At one point in another essay, he says techne and art, in ancient times, in the Greek times, they were the same. So techne, I mean, we can say in a simplified, simplistic way, technology starts as soon as humans use something other than, right, their bare hands to do things, tools, instruments, right? That's already what ultimately technology is. But the essence of technology is part of this history of being, of that which is, of the destining. You find the word destining very often. Destining on page, for example, 25. Maybe if I have time, I'll go there. But in any case, find that, it is this, part of, what happens, because it is part of what we understand with for truth, the truth of being. That again, the word truth Heidegger says in the Greek language you will find this word is aletheia. For example, on page 12, okay, look at that. You will find other places too the word aletheia, or aletheia, right, which is precisely the word for revealing, something that reveals itself, right? But that's part of the general self-arising. So there is a kind of a circular, if you will, framework logic, but this is, I hope that this gives you a sense of what he's doing. So technology is a way of revealing. Technology is revealing. You find that on page 14, page 19, page 12 already. That's aletheia, right? What we usually translate as truth. But again, Heidegger often takes issue with what he considers to be mistranslations, wrong translations from the Greek, like I said, physis, that we translate with nature. He says, no, that's the self-arising. Truth, right? Aletheia is not truth, whatever that means, but it is, right, again, unconcealment, revealing as that which comes out of a concealment, right? There is something basically hidden, it comes out of a concealment into unconcealment, into the open. Okay, so in any case, that's the question that has to do with technology, not as the right all the devices that we use, but the essence of technology. Okay, when there is also this danger, and then he speaks about modern technology per se. And actually, the thing that I said about art, he says actually in this essay on page 34. Okay, sorry for if I go from one, but I tell you which page you had to go to. On page 34, more or less in the middle of it. Okay, he says, and that's highlighted for you. And art was simply called techne. Let me read the paragraph above as well. There was a time, again, that's page 34. Okay, I'm reading from the book, but let me make sure that I have actually highlighted this in your text as well on page 34, right? Let me see. Sorry. Okay, right here. Yeah, it is highlighted precisely. Okay, so there was a time when it was not technology alone that bore the name of techne, right? Once that revealing that brings forth truth into the splendor of a radiance appearing also was called techne, and that's art. Art in broadly construed, if you will. It doesn't have to be the fine arts that we think of today, the museum and so on and so forth, right? Art is ultimately activity as well. So once there was a time when the bringing forth of the true, the making of the true into the beautiful, okay, was called techne. And the poiesis, I told you poiesis is the word from which poetry comes, but it is making, bringing forth, the poiesis production, and the poiesis of the fine arts also was called techne. Okay, so, but techne, therefore, is a word, right, that's important too, think, and he says also the arts were not derived from the artistic, artworks were not enjoyed aesthetically, art was not a sector of cultural activity, like independent from the rest, from the other activities. So techne is actually an activity that a modality that goes across all types of, if you will, human activity, whether it's work as such the labor that we do, work activity. That's what work is. Expenditure of energy and the making of something, or then what becomes more technically, perhaps more or even institutionally, art as such. Okay, but it is still a form of and it is still in function of techne. Okay, so techne, poiesis, fusis, these are important concepts that you will find again and again. Remember the difference between technology and the essence of technology, and the fact that techne is ultimately the same as well. It was the same as art. But let me go maybe to a few moments here. Then for example, on page 6, speaking about technology, not the essence technology, the devices, the instruments. What is an instrument? What is the instrumental itself? He asks the question. Then there is all this discussion, kind of difficult, about the question of causes. The cause, for example, you find on page 7 the expression causa efficiens, efficient cause, which is the cause that makes something, right? Agency, what makes, what produces something. I don't know if this is clear, but it's one of Aristotle's four causes, right? Usually we think about, the other causes, the material, final cause and formal cause, and the efficient cause is what makes something, what brings something into existence. Whereas, for example, the final cause is that for which anything is done, anything is made, right? The what for, that's the final cause, right? The end. But the efficient cause is what makes something possible. Okay, so that's very important, and he goes back to this on page 8, but this is a little difficult, but in any case, then he goes into the question of bringing forth, like I said, on page 10, 11, poiesis, fusis. It is on page 10, I read a few lines only of, this is the last paragraph from page 10. It is of utmost importance that we think, bringing forth, think about this very interesting concept. What is it to bring forth? Something that wasn't there before, right? That's basically the idea. In its full scope, and at the same time, I'm reading in the sense in which the Greeks thought of it. Not only handcraft, manufacture, not only artistic and poetical bringing into appearance and concrete imagery is a bringing forth, poiesis. That's what bringing forth is, poiesis. Again, from which poetry? He says fusis, which is what we usually translate as nature. Okay, fusis, I'm reading, also. And he continues, the arising of something from out of itself. That's what fusis is, the self arising. Is a bringing forth, poiesis. Okay, so that's very interesting. We have this type of poiesis, if you will, in the natural world, right? I mean, whatever we call usually nature. And then we have poiesis in human making, production, activity, including whatever then becomes artistic activity as such. For what right, fusis, he continues, is indeed poiesis in the highest sense. Okay, so then he continues, but I just want to also say some, well, the word aletheia, I want to repeat this, you find on page 12, and he says here technology is therefore no mere means. Technology is, I said that already, a way of revealing. Okay, so pay attention to this. Again, I remember on page 4 he says technology is not equivalent, right, to the essence of technology. And then technology is a means to an end. The other technology is a human activity, but he then criticizes this easy, if you will, understandings of technology, and he goes into the essence of technology. Okay, so then on page 14 he asks the question of modern technology per se, and it is then on page 19 that he speaks of, again, I want to repeat this important concept and framing, and I ask you to write about that, but think of this in terms of all the other, right? The other cluster of concepts, okay, and framing, which is the German Gestell. Okay, so that's in framing, and there is a footnote for you to, understand better. Modern technology, he says on this page, when then he goes into precisely this concept of framing, something that goes beyond us, beyond our power. Modern technology as an ordering, revealing, is then no merely human doing, right? So that's what the essence of technology is. That's the importance of it. That's the danger. He goes back to this on page 20 toward the bottom of the page. I read this in framing, right? And framing means the gathering together of that setting upon which sets upon man, the human, right? So it is something that goes beyond us, right? It's not over, I mean, technology, the development of technology is our own doing, right? I mean, the various devices that we, make, and so on and so forth. However, the framing itself, right, is not of human making. Okay, I hope that this is clear. And he says that is to say, challenges him, the man, the human being, forth to reveal the real, and so on and so forth. Okay, and framing means that way of revealing which holds sway in the essence of modern technology and which is itself nothing technological. Okay, so that's basically the point, right? That how can I put this in maybe a simplistic way? I mean, I don't want to be too simplistic, but if you will, the source of technology, okay, that from which technology, in the narrow sense, the technology we know, that from which it comes is not in itself technological. I mean, I hope that this is clear, right? So, and then he goes on explaining this in framing, very interesting page, page 21, in about the middle of the page, in framing, right? I mean, think about this frame, this framing, this right dimension of a situation of a capture almost, right? In framing that unconcealment, I spoke about unconcealment, which is the same as revealing, aletheia, right? The coming into the open, right? The truth, we say, right? That unconcealment comes to pass in conformity with which the work of modern technology reveals the real as a standing reserve. Think about this important concept of a standing reserve as well, which is problematic, the way in which ultimately we can say, and maybe I ask you to discuss that right in the discussion forum, the question that many people, we all think about, is technology good or bad, positive or negative? Even when we speak about social networks, digital technology, and so on and so forth. Many people opposed to the development of technology, many people for. But the question is perhaps, to decide on different. I mean, the question is not technological, it is philosophical, and it is political, right? I mean, the use and the abuse of technology, that is something which may be precisely left to us, but the essence of technology is something that goes beyond, okay, that or comes before the framing, okay, that makes it possible for us to engage in technology, Okay, so it's like saying that if we speak a language, any language whatsoever, we must, right, have already the capacity to speak. We must be able to speak in order then to speak this or that language, and so on and so forth. Okay, this work, he continues in the middle of page, and then maybe I stop there, uh, almost 21. This work is therefore neither only a human activity nor a mere means within such activity. Okay, so again on page 23, toward the end, the bottom, he says the essence of modern technology shows itself in what we call enframing. So I mean, again, then he speaks about this history, the destiny on page 24, and the open on page 25. The open, the danger on page 26. He speaks about the danger, but I already told you something about the danger. And I would end here, again, ask questions if you have any. Maybe I read from the very bottom, page 29, one last sentence. The challenging revealing has its origin as a destiny in bringing forth, but at the same time in framing in a way characteristic of a destiny blocks poiesis, and there is a reference that you can find, go to page 27 as well. And so I hope that this gives you some ideas as to what this difficult text is. Again, the most important moments, technology and the essence of technology, two different ideas. Then the concepts of poiesis, fusis, bringing forth. Poiesis is bringing forth, but it is also the same as fusis, the self arising, which also brings forth something, right? Aletheia, unconcealment, revealing, which is what we usually translate as truth, and framing. The essence of technology is nothing technological, and the danger. What is the danger really? But where there is danger, there is also the saving power. I leave that to you to think about these concepts, and think about the question of technology, the way you see this question, which is so important, right? Today for sure. Okay, see you next time. Thank you.